So welcome to module number 3 in our blockchain subject of the course. In this module, we're going to be looking at what a decentralized ledger actually is. Okay, so we've looked at the potential applications of a decentralized internet. And now let's look at the potential for decentralized information, okay, owned by either businesses or owned by the public. Okay, so we're going to learn how the ledger can not only be public but can also be privately used. So briefly, the contents of this module. We're going to look at what a ledger actually is. Okay, the evolutions of the ledger or records and accounts. How trust is created, because trust is very important with records and information, which may be financial or personal, okay, to individuals. Then we're going to look at the types of blockchain ledger. Then moving into the blockchain ledger specifically, and also potentially potential applications of property ledgers. So let's start off with what is a ledger. So the simple definition is it's a record of accounts. That's all a ledger is. And the blockchain allows us to decentralize this ledger. And if a ledger is a record of accounts or a store of financial information or personal data, then we start to see how a ledger is actually really, really important to not only the next generation of internet, but it's a very important aspect of the blockchain, because that is what blockchain is all about. It's about being decentralized, the anonymity aspect of the blockchain, okay, and also the security levels of the blockchain. It all ties into this personal data, this very, very trusted system which allows us to trust these financial accounts as well. So Internet 3.0, the blockchain, a store of records and values, okay? Like I've just said, it's a store of personal or maybe even financial information. So the evolutions of a ledger. Well, if we are getting into the realms of decentralizing these ledgers and these accounts, well, it must have started off being very centralized, and they did. Okay, we started off with paper ledgers. Pre-internet, we had paper ledgers. Now, as you can imagine, is there any trust with a paper ledger? It's centralized, it's paper, which can be very easily copied, duplicated, manipulated, changed, edited, okay, depending on the type of ink you used, for example, I don't know. Then, after Internet 1.0, we've got digital ledgers, okay, where the trust is slightly better, but again, the information, the data is still centralized. It's still owned by companies, and people are very involved with keeping track and keeping these records up to date and this information up to date, and ensuring the information is not used in a malicious way. So the trust is slightly better because it's digital. However, it's not fully there yet. There's still room for improvement with a centralized digital ledger. And that leads me on to the blockchain ledger. Okay, so again, we're solving the current problems in the world with this decentralized trust machine, okay, with our personal data, financial data, records, entire monetary systems. And that is essentially the power of blockchain. It's allowing us to tick the boxes which have previously been left unticked. Okay, the trust element is becoming solid. So how is trust created? We've briefly just been over this, but again, in terms of the blockchain, the encryption of the blockchain is one aspect of trust. The chronological order of data is another aspect. Okay, making sure data is not manipulated, duplicated, or anything like that. The decentralized network, which I'm sure you're fed up of me saying by this point, because it's all about this decentralization. The immutable records, so the fact that with this encryption, we can't go and change these records. They're written in digital stone. The transparency of data. Now, again, there's two types of ledger. So one aspect is the transparency of data. We'll take Bitcoin as an example of that. Anyone can view the ledger of Bitcoin, okay, or the blockchain with all the blockchain transactions. And then we have it's secure from brute force hackers. Okay, it's, in the past 12 years, I've said this previously, there's never been a fraudulent transaction on Bitcoin. And there's also never been a hack on Bitcoin. Now, having said that, I am aware that some third-party companies, and it's very important you hear the word companies, external third parties from Bitcoin have been hacked and have lost large amounts of money, okay, into the millions in cryptocurrencies because of one mistake or another. We can tie that down to human error, okay. But Bitcoin itself, as a blockchain network, has never been hacked in 12 years. Okay, and personally, I believe it never will be. Personal opinion. Now, moving on, we have these different types of blockchain ledger. Okay, so like we just said, the transparency of data, yes, but also we have permissioned data. So companies can actually use this blockchain technology, yet still have data on a strictly need-to-know basis. So it's not the free use or the free access of all data in the world. We can still utilize this blockchain back end of the internet, if you like, or these blockchains to store permissioned data. So essentially we can shift all of the data that currently exists on the internet over to Web 3.0 because we can have these two different types of ledgers, a freely accessed ledger or a need-to-know basis ledger, which may be utilized with a company, for example. So then what are some potential applications of a blockchain ledger? So let's use economics and finance as an example. It's a great example, actually. Assets, we can keep track of assets. This is a financial record or record of accounts. We can keep track of assets. And again, because it's an immutable ledger, we can't change the assets once they've been written into the code. So this allows us to have trust in individuals' asset records and business asset records. Again, same thing with inventory. You might want to have a personal inventory of all your items in your house, for example. You know, the applications are endless. Your business may have stock to keep track of, and you may want to keep that data on a blockchain. Again, with exchanges, purchases, refunds, things of that nature, we can keep track of all this information in the ledger. And most importantly, in terms of businesses, consumer data, we can store consumer data, but consumers can also access their own data. Okay, so those are just some brief applications of a ledger. Now, going into permission ledgers, okay, we may want to keep track of business equities. Okay, as things become, as all property could become smart property and connected to the internet or blockchain technology, we may want to keep our business accounts or our business equities or any other kind of record or account on blockchain ledgers. Okay, the same goes for intellectual property, and we can start to mix in these smart contracts. Okay, different financial services can be stored on the blockchain. Now, this is just the ledger section. However, hopefully we start to see how the applications for the blockchain are almost endless at this point. So, with that being said, that is the decentralized ledger section of the blockchain subject complete. Hopefully, we're starting to get a broader picture for the actual application, the real world application that blockchain is enabling us to access. Okay, so in the next module, we're going to be talking about the Internet of Things and tying this all together as a blockchain subject before we move on to Bitcoin. So I will see you in the final module of this subject.